Hey, I'm Marcel. I'm in downtown Sovietsky Rayon in Bryansk, Russia. I'm Marcel. I'm living in Russia. Welcome to another episode of The Trajectory. It's a place where I'll give my geopolitical analysis and talk about how I view things going on right now. Today's episode will include aspects of what's happening in Istanbul with the talks and some other details related to the perspective of the battlefield versus the strategic talks going on in Istanbul. Beautiful day. It's very windy. I got my special microphone on. Hopefully it'll work properly. So today's episode is just covering quickly what's going on in Istanbul vis-a-vis talks that are trying to achieve, I guess, what they call a lasting peace. On the surface, it seems to be a theater of the absurd because the way I'm understanding it is the talks are occurring in the country of Turkey. They involve 3 or 4 delegations. 4, that includes the host nation. The Russian delegation landed in Istanbul to talk and have meetings at 10 a.m. yesterday. And what apparently happened is the Ukrainian delegation flew to Antalya to talk with Erdogan rather than meet with the Russian delegation. So another entourage of Ukraine met with the Americans, US base, NATO base that's in Turkey. So you had some kind of a summit that occurred with 4 parties in 3 different locations, and it seems to me it probably yielded 0 results. So with lots of theatrics in the previous week with the European leaders traveling to Ukraine on May 8th, and then the absurdity of all the videos of Macron, Starmer, and the new German Prime Minister meeting in the train, and all the disinformation about the usage of things, of illegal substances there. And then May 9th, the next day, with the big parade in Moscow. And so that's the context we're in. And I guess my talk today is talking about a bit of the balance of power that we are seeing out on the battlefield. From my informal perspective, what I see is Ukrainian army being completely exhausted and some really negative news coming out of the front lines back to regions like Bryansk, where I'm able to get a little bit of that information. Some of that information relates to stories where Ukrainian forces and the official government is supporting troops on the front lines to take supplements and steroids to enhance their performance while they're unable to do troop rotations and the exhaustion sets in. So I'm sure everybody's seen videos of soldiers that get captured where they're very exhausted, deeply undernourished, and with the promotion of supplements and drugs on the front lines, it will only further devastate the Ukrainian population in the long term, because a lot of these troops will leave the area with significant psychological trauma, physical healthcare issues. And I speak to this as someone who, was a healthcare administrator in the Canadian Forces that supported exercises and troops. And so in my job as a healthcare administrator officer, I often just led, teams of medics, and there's different kinds of medics, and there's teams of doctors that would work in the field. And, those people would have, each a job that's focused on maintaining the fighting strength of the forces. So I kind of know a little bit of what I'm talking about. And when I hear horrific accounts of, troops not being able to be rotated and they're forced to maintain the lines and extended period of times, I mean, any soldier will know that they've done exercises for significant amounts of time. The exhaustion wears in, but imagine real-time war where you're unable to be provided with breaks would be absolutely horrific. In the meantime, you got troops in the trenches, and they're living this day-to-day exhaustion and horrible conditions, and you see the theater of absurd of the strategic politics from the Western world, you know, pumping their chests and talking about having positions of strength when clearly they're not in a position of strength. It is so absurd. So my appeal is, from a realism perspective, of course. I like to look at things in a realistic perspective, understanding that it will not satisfy the politics of the day, especially the Western neoliberal angle on things. And I can tell you that it's going to be a tough haul going forward for the Ukrainian army based on what I see going on. I've got contacts around here that are easily able to provide me sometimes evidence on Telegram, or a document that's been captured, things that are going on the front line. And what I see a lot is the use of various stimulants to keep the troops able to fight, steroid use. And imagine that it's like history repeating from World War II, the mistakes of the past coming back to life. Just going to walk in the middle of the forest here. It's less windy and actually just beautiful. Wow, let me do a little turn around here. Guys playing saxophone. Yeah, so it's quite beautiful in the forest here as compared to what's probably happening out on the battlefields. And it's a shame, because I know that the Russian people don't want to see Ukrainians suffer more than they have to, but the special military operation that is occurring was again emphasized in the Istanbul Russian delegation yesterday, where they spoke just as a matter of fact what they're going to achieve. And the last one there is denazification. So that obviously goes to the command structure of the Ukrainian armed forces, where they have people who are of a certain persuasion and ideological stance that are more than willing to oppress the Russian language within Eastern populations. And again, strategically, the Ukraine is not backing down from the idea of taking back Crimea and the eastern sections of Ukraine. So I'm sure it's going to continue on for a very long time till there is some kind of capitulation on one way or the other. As far as me living in Russia, I don't see an economic capitulation happening anytime soon. Sure, there can be some signs of additional economic strains, but it's not in the critical things like food distribution or anything like that. So, I mean, it's a far off idea saying the Russian economy is going to collapse. What I do see occurring is, like, most of us are just exhausted of this conflict and would like to see it end. And in order to end, unfortunately, people just need to get to the negotiation table and deal with the hands they have. And I won't do too much of a play on words but you know what I mean. There's a very unrealistic expectation coming out of Europe as to what is achievable. And I sure hope that for the sake of everybody and all parties concerned, that there comes a point where there's a realization that this needs to just stop, just like what Donald Trump is trying to achieve. Unfortunately, again, strategically there are so many disconnects that it's going to be a long time still. I see that the Ukrainian communication plan is solely based on propaganda, war of information, regardless of whether there's truth behind it or not. And it doesn't seem like there's much truth coming from that camp, and doesn't look like it bodes well for the average Ukrainian living in Ukraine. And then as far as the Russian government is concerned, I've lived here long enough to know that they have a very complex methodology of litigating these types of things, and it's very legalistic, and it's very point by point in terms of achieving, guarantees that are legally binding, which is not something good the Trump administration seems to be good at. And so they're very cavalier. They don't really seem to have the administrative tools in the toolbox to deal with this kind of a conflict. And because of that, we're going to see lots of delays, lots of fumbling of the ball with regards to the Americans. And, Trump's only there for 4 years. And a lot of the people in the American camp are just waiting till his time abides where they can maintain this proxy war. So, man, it's just a stupid situation. Unbelievable. Yeah, so Russia's just going to maintain its pressure to achieve its legal demands, which it sees as right in terms of history. And we all know that that's not an accepted view from the West. So that's what we're going to see for the next year. Forward movement probably on the battlefield, unless there is some gigantic change strategically that someone does. Yeah, pretty depressing talk on a Friday. It's why my show is called The Trajectory, because in all honesty, the reason why I came up with that idea is we just keep escalating over the past 3-4 years here, and it goes back way more than 4 years, to be honest, but it has left everybody exhausted and bewildered with the political people at the top in many places. And I just do a turn here because I got a beautiful little Ferris wheel here behind me. It's not operating right now, but it will be. Such a beautiful park. Yeah, so again, just comparing life as it must be for those in the front lines versus those in the strategic political arena and the media that covers it all. It's just like so unrealistic, so detached from reality. So anyways, getting word out to you on an honest, face-to-face kind of talk is, I don't know if it serves any purpose, but I feel like based on my experience and understanding of the conflict living here and what I see going on and what I understand, it's so serious to try and get politicians to stop this conflict. And it's really important that new politicians and new leadership in the future understand that the old institutions of the past are changing so dramatically that some of them will be rendered probably obsolete. And new systems of finance and new systems of government institutions are likely to arise out of this conflict, which is so multifaceted because of geopolitical implications it causes throughout the world. Anyways, those are my thoughts. Kind of a ranting and raving talk, but it really is about the horrors you would see on the front lines versus the comedy and theater of the absurd you would see in strategic circles. In the meantime, let's keep walking through this beautiful park, and I will see you on the flip side.